UrbanMali. Be blessed by the divine.
By the divine.
Thank you all for joining us for this wonderful session with Dr. Vandana of UrbanMali. I met Vandana, I think, well over a decade. Is that not right, Vandana?
I think much longer than that.
Much longer than that. Yeah. She, of course, learned meditation along with her husband through us in our Sky Yoga Center, and ever since has been an active volunteer participant, a teacher, regularly guiding women meditators in our meditation center uh, on meditation. About a few years ago, she started this wonderful initiative called as the UrbanMali, and I'm fortunate to have been associated with her in mentoring her in whatever little ways that I can, along with Radha. And she has won the Times Woman Entrepreneur of the Year award a couple of years ago. Isn't that right?
Yes, it was last year actually.
It was actually last
2020.
year, 2020. She won the Woman Entrepreneur of the Year award by Times of India. It's a prestigious award. She won it. And she, interestingly, helps migrant farmers to be gainfully employed in such a way that their professional self-esteem is sustained and maintained, and they don't get into wrong habits of smoking and drinking and wife beating and things like that once they come into the city. So it's actually a noble work. It's what they like to call the social entrepreneurship initiatives, one of the initiatives that Radha has been actively mentoring for many, many months at this point of time. So she believes that gardening is meditative in nature. So I want to have her today and ask questions on behalf of you on what she means by meditative gardening. So that's my first question to you, Vandana. What do you mean by meditative gardening at home?
Well, for those of you who have grown up in gardens or have a garden at home, or who as children, outdoors garden areas was a large part of our life, you will know that being in the outdoors or just getting into nature instantly makes you feel a whole lot better. So humans are naturally biophilic, which means that they have a natural affection towards nature, attraction towards nature. So when we see something green or when we are in the outdoors, it works, on our psyche, and it makes us feel a lot calmer. So when nature already has such an impact on us, having a little garden or even that little pot on your windowsill, or that small Tulsi plant that almost all of us in South India have. When you get into a house or you rent a house or you buy a house, you see an empty balcony, the first thought that comes to your mind is, let me put a small Tulsi katte there, or a small planter with a Tulsi plant. Even that has a huge impact on us. Just interacting with plants, just being in the presence of plants, just having a garden or doing gardening every day is actually a very meditative experience, because it works on helping us become a lot calmer, a lot more peaceful, and very calm from inside. So there are so many different ways in which we can go about doing gardening, or the different activities that are involved in gardening. But just interacting with nature, the color green, it's a very meditative experience.
It's true. Something about plants that make us feel happy. Why is it?
Right. So if you look at the science behind it, okay, so there is a whole science called as horticultural therapy. Horticultural therapy is basically the interaction that people have with plants, the interaction that they have with nature through the act of gardening. where you look at, plants, you feel plant or touch plants, it really does have a, very positive impact on you. If you look at the spectrum, look at the colors from one end of the spectrum, which is violet, and the other end, which is red, you see that green is bang in the center. Colors also have an impact on us. If you're feeling very anxious, very hyper, if you look at colors that are, more on one end of the spectrum, which is violet and blue, it helps us feel a lot calmer. On the other hand, if you are feeling very depressed or very low, if you interact with colors that are more related to red and orange, or vibrant and bright colors, it helps you get pepped up and get very energetic. When you look at green, it's bang in the middle of the spectrum. So it always draws us back from whichever end of, the emotions that we are going through. So looking at the color green, and even if you were to look at photographs of gardens, it immediately gets you back to a neutral ground, and it's very, very peaceful and very calm.
Very true. There's something about gardening that has an impact on our mood. So, is there any bacteria or virus or something that makes our brain secrete some kind of a happy chemical? Is there a connection between
I
our?
am I know what you're getting at. So when interacting with soil, when interacting with plants and the media that holds plants, which is soil. Soil is what we find, on the ground with mixed with fertilizer. So when you are gardening, you are, have getting your hands to touch soil. So soil is known to have a certain bacteria that triggers the happy hormone called serotonin, right? So it triggers serotonin in the human body. So for a child who's very, very hyper and, not able to control them, if you just get them to put their hands into some soil and just play around with the soil, or work around in the garden, you can significantly notice that the anxiety or the hyperactivity in the child decreases, and it happens to everybody. So if you're having a stressful day at work, with heavy deadlines at office, and you're feeling extremely anxious, take a break, get into your garden, dig your hands into some soil, or just immerse your hands into soil, and instantly the happy hormone is triggered, which has different chemical reactions on our brain, and it helps us feel a lot better. So that is working with soil.
Lovely. So there is this serotonin that gets produced when we touch the soil and play with the soil. No wonder the children actually love to play with mud, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. It seems to be a natural antidepressant that makes us happier. So that's like half the benefit of meditation right there for us when we play with mud and when we work with the garden. But there is something more than just the serotonin, isn't it? So working with plants, working in a garden, doing gardening is also physical activity. I've heard a great saint once say that there are two things that destroy us: activity in the brain without our control, inactivity in the body without any control. So there are two things: activity in the brain and inactivity in the body. Now, gardening seems to bring calm to the brain. That means the noise inside the brain seems to come down while physically one gets active. And I understand that the brain scientists are beginning to study this and saying that gardening or any exercise for that matter also release endorphins that help to mitigate the effect of depression and anxiety. Are there any other benefits to the body or the mind through gardening?
Of course, if there are any gardeners amongst you, you will know that even just removing the weeds from your container garden or your pot, or doing some amount of repotting is a lot of physical activity. So that once in a week tending to your garden, removing some weeds, removing the pest, loosening up the soil, moving the plants from here to there, cleaning up the garden is all a lot of physical activity. So that's for a container garden. But if you have a garden on the ground, on the soil, digging up the soil, planting new things, harvesting things, adding fertilizer to the garden, adding new soil to the garden, all of these different activities of course include a lot of exercise. So if you want to skip your regular exercise on the weekend, then you can definitely replace it with gardening, because gardening also burns a lot of calories. It's a good workout, and you can plan your sort of general maintenance of your garden on the weekend, so you can get a good workout out of your gardening as well. So and all of these are physical movements. Like if you had to take a shovel and dig it into the soil and pull it out like our farmers do, or you loosen up the soil with your little hand spade, or whatever it is, it takes some amount of effort. Whether you had to maybe even climb up a tree and harvest some fruit, all of them include a lot of physical activity, which is great because it becomes our workout as well. So on the physical side of things also, gardening has, like you said, a huge a benefit to us as well.
You mentioned that gardening increases or improves our mood, increases positive thinking. Does it mean that it can also help to reduce anger?
Oh, of course. I mean, plants are, um, I feel like the most evolved organisms. People would say humans are, but according to me, plants are really, these amazing beings that are so highly evolved that not only help nature around us, but it also helps us as humans to a great extent. There's so many things that if you spend time in your own garden and you just looked at the different kind of leaves that are there, or the different ways in which plants grow. Some plants, you have a straight stem and then you have branches coming out of it. Some plants grow a little curved. You'll see this plant is almost like a round, um, you know a ball sort of a thing. So there's so much amazing variety in nature that it never leaves anyone bored, or feeling like it's the same old thing. It's not the same as, say, looking at a concrete wall. So we are all people who are getting more and more used to this concrete jungle sort of environment, and with that comes a lot of problems as such. So that is the occupational hazard of working within concrete structures. But if you are in nature, there is nothing that is monotonous or uniform. There's always so much happening. There's so much of dynamic activity. One leaf, the way a single leaf grows, another leaf will never grow the same way. It always has a different way that it grows. Two plants have different kind of leaves. So there's so much of variety in nature. Just observing this variety, just looking at so much of difference in nature also helps the mind, not just become monotoned and sort of dull, but it keeps the mind really active and really, really busy. So there are many different activities that you can do out in nature to even really sharpen your mind or really feel a lot more refreshed. So in the same breath, I'd like to talk to you about a, a problem that is now a problem all across the world, which is called as a nature deficit disorder. So the lack of nature for people like us living in cities, children who are more adapted to a city environment than the outdoors or nature, they have a lot of behavioral problems these days because of the less association with nature. Children who have a nature deficit disorder are less creative. They're not all that creative. they don't have problem solving capabilities. They are, a lot of them are obese because they're just sitting down with their video games or their electronic media. They're hardly moving around. They also have communication problems. When a child goes out into nature, you'll never see that child just moving quietly or being very lazy. A child will run free. So you put them even in a playground or even in a forest, a child will run free because of that biophilic association, which I was telling you about, the attraction to nature. So children who have more exposure to nature are a lot more creative. A play for them is not just their video game, but it'll be putting one stone over the other stone, or climbing a plant, or looking at different aspects of nature. So that also really helps the mind, and it helps improve behavior to a large extent. And so you probably, your next question would be like, who has the access to that kind of nature, who has big gardens or big parks that they can associate with. Even that one plant that you have on your windowsill can be your gateway into exploring nature, exploring plants around you, and it can really help anybody. So the way we interact with plants around us, whether it's just spending time in the garden, whether it is digging the soil, whether it is observing plants, whether it is picking a leaf and popping it in your mouth or smelling something, all of this has wonderful benefits on the mind. And it does become a very, very meditative experience interacting with nature.
When people work with gardening, it lifts their mood, they make them happy, reduce the anger. All of these are benefits that one gets out of meditation as well. I remember this wonderful story once I read where an old man never actually worried in his life. He had a lot of problems, but every time he came to the office, he would not think of the problems in the house, and in the house, he would not think of the problems in the office. So somebody stopped him and asked him, "How is this possible?" He said, "Look at the tree outside my house. Whenever I come out of the house, I hang all my home worries in that particular tree, and I go to office. And whenever I come into the house, I leave all my office worries in the tree, pick up my house worries, and come inside." So, therefore, these two different things are completely partitioned in my mind, and it doesn't really affect me. Wonderful story, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, it sounds like, he literally hung his worries out onto the tree and came in. But again, it goes back to this entire energy that, or the spectrum, right? So when you are with a plant or under a tree or in nature, there is some sort of a balancing of energies that happen. And looking at the color green is one way in which whatever intense emotions that you feel, or stress or anger or worries that you have, it's a lovely way in which it gets balanced out. It's almost like you are stressed out, you are worried, and you go into the garden and you just sit there for 5-10 minutes. Personally, it's happened to me so many times. I stopped even counting that. I just look at a plant or sit in my garden, and I feel all the answers come to me. Whatever is worrying me, I'm able to think through it. I'm able to break it down. I'm able to understand it. And, I'm so grateful that I have Swamiji's methods that I have been practicing for so many years, that being in a garden added to these lovely methods that I've learned, I'm able to plan and act, really break down all my worries into different segments. And I'm certain that this is what happens to a lot of people without their conscious knowledge as well. So what I'm trying to say about just being a lot more relaxed in out in nature, probably is happening on many different levels to a lot of people as well. So the fact that you can become calm, forget about what is bothering you so much, or that person you have a grudge on, or the person, or the reason that we are so angry, you can really dump it on the plants, because they know how to solve it, and they help us solve our issues as well, or help us get through whatever is bothering us. So it's something that's happening in a very subconscious level, and I recommend nature and plants and gardening to everybody, along with the lovely methods that we have learned.
There is some energy exchange that seems to be taking place between the plants and the humans, us, when we are gardening. Does it also mean that when you approach the plants with positive mindedness, say for instance, with blessings in our mind,
Mhm.
do plants respond better? And if so, how?
Yes, yes. I know for a fact that there are people who've done these experiments as well, wherein they would keep blessing the plants, and they would eventually see that a hurt plant has actually become a lot stronger, its health has improved, and it definitely helps. So, sir, you and I have blessed so many trees that we have transplanted, and we've been able to at least be part of that system. Therefore, when you do get into your garden, you bless a plant, you bless the nature around you. It does have a wonderful vibration that it transfers to the plant as well, and that positive vibrations, or that positive energy, definitely does impact the plant. So you will see plants that are a lot I mean, it's happened to me. I have seen plants get a lot healthier. I have seen plants produce beautiful flowers and amazingly delicious looking vegetables, and I'd like to believe that that is because of the care as well as the blessings that I have been constantly giving them.
You should actually have a title called a spiritual plant doctor.
Sure.
So you seem to be talking more as a psychologist than as a plant specialist. So those who have joined late, we are continuing this wonderful conversation with Dr. Vandana. She is the founder of UrbanMali Network. She is helping get employment, gainful employment with proper professional self-esteem, professional training for migrant farmers into the city of Bangalore. She has well over about much over 50 gardeners who are gainfully employed. They're all meditators, and they have learned the Kundalini meditation, and they have learned simplified exercises, and they meditate, they exercise. She is a sky master, simplified Kundalini yoga master herself. So continuing this conversation with Vandana. Vandana, tell us, if someone is deep down the rut with negative emotion, worries, anger, etc., etc., what sort of gardening exercises do you recommend for them?
So, a person who is, having anger issues is someone who is feeling a lot of intense emotions. So when we work with them, in their gardens, firstly, we help them to set up a garden. So if it means even just one container, we get them to first, set up the container garden, right? So what that secretly does is that they are digging their hands right into soil. So already the bacteria in the soil is working its magic, and it is triggering serotonin in the human body. So we get them to work along with soil for a while, mix the soil with some fertilizer, really mix it well, add some cocoa peat. Along the way, teach them about gardening as well. So when they are interacting with this plant media, and having their hands into this plant media, they're already feeling some connection with the activity that they're doing, but also connection with the soil as such. So already that's the first step, that some people may say, oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty, can I wear gloves? So we say, no, no, you don't have to, you need to feel the soil. So that's the first way we get people to start doing. So they set up the container garden, then is when they plant the plant. So you usually have the plants in the sapling bag. So we talk to them slowly through how you open the sapling bag. So it's a very, very gentle, very basic guidelines or steps that they do. So after that, they gently put it in. We constantly talk to them about how plants are an important entity. They're also organisms. So the connection with the activity of actually planting the plant is by now something that they cannot do with any aggression. They will do it very slowly, they will do it very calmly. So when they plant the plant, it's again a very slow and calm and very calming sort of activity. While that's one activity, the others are observing plants. So like I was saying, plants are so dynamic. Two leaves also don't look exactly the same. So we place a plant in front of the person and ask them to look at the plant from different angles. So they start from the bottom of the stem, and then slowly their eyes move all the way to the top. They look at this plant from different angles as well. So while they are observing this plant and looking at this plant from different angles, it's also working on helping them focus, helping them be observant, and which also means that it's helping them break down their observations into smaller observations. So it's also giving them some sort of a positive feedback to their brain as well. The other very, very, very interesting activity, which also has a huge impact and a very fast impact, is smell. So to have plants that smell a particular way, whether it is a very strong fragrance or whether it is a very calming and soothing fragrance like honey, like some flowers actually smell like honey. So making them smell certain flowers, picking a basil leaf and smelling the basil leaf, or popping a Tulsi leaf into their mouth, all of that has is activating all their senses. So when it's activating their different senses, they are trying to take in get a feedback on what are all these multiple informations that they are getting from the plant. One very interesting thing that I'd like to say here about Tulsi is that when you go to temples and you usually receive a Tulsi leaf, so ideally we're supposed to put it into our mouth and eat the Tulsi leaf. So it was done because Tulsi is an antidepressant. So people who are feeling very low on energy, very depressed, Tulsi actually helps to improve your mood. It helps you also in problem solving. So people would come to temples with the intention of they would come to the temples with these problems on their mind and wondering and worried on how they would solve it. And that little Tulsi leaf actually helps them to feel a lot more positive and also work towards solving their problems. So the sense of smell, the sense of taste, you give them a particular stem that feels very different. It has very thick corners, or a leaf that is succulent and is filled with water. So all of these different senses gets the mind to be so much more active, and it really helps in slow problem solving as well.
Tulsi, the queen of herbs, we call it. It's a beautiful plant to grow at home, is it not?
Of course, and it's one of the most easiest plants to grow. So I mean, it's also revered by people all across, especially India, where we use it for pujas as well. And it's one of the plants that you will find in most homes, in most Hindu homes at least. Um, uh, you know, and a lot of us don't eat the leaves, but we should, because it has wonderful properties. And Tulsi as such is, and being an antidepressant is just one of its properties, but it helps in, I mean, all of us probably also know it. It helps in coughs and colds. It helps in digestion. It helps, I mean, it even helps in weight loss. So it's called the queen of herbs because it has a multitude of different medicinal properties. And it's used largely by Ayurveda in their different medicinal preparations. So yeah, it truly deserves the queen of herbs name.
I have a small balcony, and you have helped set up some gardens. So, tell us about your idea of how to set up a garden in a balcony? Let's say um, 10 feet wide by about 5 feet long. That's 50 square feet. How do you make a garden out of that place?
So much can be done even in that little space. It's really left up to how extensively you want to, use up the space and how creative you want to get. If a balcony is brightly lit, then you can easily grow herbs, vegetables. If you have some larger containers, you could even grow fruits, and of course flowers. So most of these that I have mentioned, which is vegetables and herbs and fruits and flowers, are all plants that require 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. So well-lit balcony, those are the plants that you should be growing there. If you have a balcony that has lesser light, somewhere between 2 to 4 hours of sunlight, then you can grow plants that are shade-loving plants, which are plants that are used to growing in lesser amounts of sunlight. For instance, ferns, ginger, turmeric, all of them are plants that can grow in lesser amounts of sunlight. Money plant is one plant that will grow in less amounts of sunlight. So, but there are no plants that can grow in darkness. So if you have a dark balcony, then maybe it would not be the smartest idea to start a garden there. If it's 10 by say 5 feet, or as you were mentioning, you can plan to have one container at every corner, along the corner or along the boundary of the balcony. So each container, if you assume it's about 1 foot in diameter, you can easily have 9 pots with a little space in between, and say around 2-3 pots on the other side. If you are an enthusiastic gardener like me, you can have a lot more pots, and you can have multiple layers. So and then of course you can go vertical as well. If you have wall spaces, and you can get containers that you can get fixed on the wall, that's another option as well. If you have railings, you can have railing planters also. You can have larger containers, like say a drum. If you have a drum, you can even grow fruit plants in that, and mix it up with some other herbs and greens. And so there's a lot that you can do in a little space. It really depends on what kind of plants you can grow there. So in terms of how much sunlight does it receive, and also what you would like to grow there.
What if there is no sunlight, but there is brightness? There's no
Yeah.
direct sunlight into the balcony, but there is brightness. It's not an enclosed dark corner. There is brightness, but it's no direct sunlight. What happens? Can we still have a
So
garden
like
there
I
in
was
that
saying,
balcony?
anywhere between 2 to 4 hours of sunlight, which is lesser amount. So it's called diffused light. It's not direct light, but more diffused sunlight. So you can grow plants that have more leaves. So like this is a plant called syngonium. It grows in lesser amounts of sunlight. So what a plant does, so if you go back to plant biology that we studied in school, we all talked about something called photosynthesis, just this heavy word. What is photosynthesis? So, to put it very simply, plants utilize sunlight to make food. So, plants like vegetables and fruits and flowers need a lot of sunlight to be able to make, their vegetables and flowers. So, producing flowers or producing fruits is an expensive activity for the plant. So it has to put in a lot of resources into growing those flowers and fruits. So therefore they would grow well and thrive in a space which has a lot of sunlight. But on the other hand, plants that, if you have lesser sunlight, you would rather grow plants like ginger, turmeric, money plant, ferns. All of them, if you look at them, they mostly have a lot of foliage or a lot of leaves, like syngonium as well. You will not see any flowers on it, but it has a lot, mostly only leaves. So this is a plant thinking that, hey, I don't have enough sunlight, but I need to survive, I need to thrive. So let me only produce leaves. So by producing leaves only, at least I'm growing and I'm surviving, and I'll figure out how to multiply. I might add some extra roots here or there, and that becomes another plant, but I'm not going to waste my only energy that I'm getting with a little amount of sunlight into producing any flowers or fruits. So a lot of the indoor plants, a lot of the shade loving plants are plants that can grow with, diffused light, or some, anything between 2 to 4 hours.
Only we have a follower on YouTube called Bhavi Raman, who is asked a very interesting question. I would like to ask you that question.
Sure.
Bhavi says that they love the papaya tree in their garden, and 2 months ago they all got affected by COVID in their family,
Okay.
and suddenly the healthy papaya got infected by some insects and stopped growing further. So the question is there any relationship between the health of the people who are tending care to those gardens and plants and the health of the plants themselves? Do they actually respond to human suffering?
I don't know if I am in a position to answer that, but I will tell you that there is an energy in exchange between us and plants. People talk about talking to plants, right? What is talking to plants? So do plants respond to sound? So they do respond to sound, they do respond to music, they do respond to a certain amount of energy. But what also happens is that if, many of you have fallen ill at home, maybe we didn't tend to the garden as much as we would normally do. So whether watering got affected, whether we didn't have time to put in that fertilizer that we do regularly. So those aspects, and also sort of erratic watering. So say you water it today and you didn't water it for 3 days, and then you water it on the fourth day. All of that also has an effect on the plants. Or there was, say, rain one day and then there was too much water. So those aspects also will affect the plants. So it could definitely be your lack of interaction with the garden, and as well a certain maintenance that was required that didn't happen.
I have heard when I went to China, we have been to China a few times. When I went to China, interestingly, the Chinese cotton industry, cotton growing industry has beaten India by miles in the last about 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And they said the reason, there's an interesting spiritual reason that the Chinese gardeners offered. I was amazed that they are so spiritually inclined. They don't believe in God. Most Chinese don't believe in God, but they believe in nature. So they said that for us, the plants are a part of our family. So when they water the garden, they talk to the plants, they talk to the trees, they bless it, they sing songs, and they touch it, they hug it, they give love and compassion to the plants. When they even play music during when they are not there physically, they play certain soft kind of music to the plants, and so much so that these cotton trees are producing uniformly the same count. What they call the count is the quality. So the cotton quality is measured by the count. They say number 5, number 6, number 7, like that. In India, one plant will not have the same count of quality throughout. So in one corner you will have 5 count, another corner you will have 7 count, another corner you have 3 count, and things like that. So this is not a consistent quality at all. But in China, apparently, the quality is not only consistent for a single tree, but also consistent for the entire farm. Can you believe that?
It's amazing. I mean, a lot of recent science is showing that plants can sense, like we have five senses. Plants also respond to light, sound, touch. And it's just that these experiments are done in different ways, but a certain kind of exposure that we give the plants regularly or continuously can receive the similar response from the plant on an extended period of time. So if we are, say for instance, exposing the plants or the entire farm to a certain kind of music, you will see that this constant repetition of things will react or will result in similar features on the plant or similar way that it responds over time. So plants also are constantly evolving with the surrounding environment as well. And it's so amazing to even understand and see how they respond to that. So by exposing plants to less light and more light and larger amounts of light, you will see that it has a resultant reaction in terms of producing smaller flowers to larger flowers to very big flowers. So everything that it gets exposed to, a little touch on the stem by some predator will have an immediate response. So that's why I like to say that plants are such highly evolved beings, because whatever the surrounding, it cannot run, it cannot hide. We can run, we can escape, but plants are immobile beings. So they have mastered the surroundings so well that they know how to survive and thrive in spite of all the danger and the predators and the difficulties that they have around them. So every reaction, every change in weather, it always results in something or the other in the plant. So if it is used to a certain environment, it will react in a similar fashion. And it's amazing to see, especially with ongoing climate change and all of that, plants are really figuring out ways to survive and master survival. So I'm not amazed that this would happen, but it's just, it's plants are really wonderful beings.
Plants are indeed wonderful beings. So we have had a wonderful 45 minutes discussion with you, Vandana. Thank you so much for joining us in this session and initiating us into this gardening as a meditative experience that would help us calm our mind with nature. It produces endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, as well as reward chemicals that keeps us happy, peaceful, stress-free, anger-free, and positively inclined towards our life. And it has the ability to respond to our positive thinking, and it flourishes. Remember, friends, plants are one of the earliest evolutionary beings on this earth. They evolved much before humans evolved. They are therefore a lot wiser than us. They know how to adapt themselves to various climatic changes in various countries and various environmental conditions and soils and water qualities, etc. And also remember, plants can survive without human beings. Nobody waters the Amazon forest. Nobody waters the Western Ghats. Nobody waters the trees and the plants that you find in any forest anywhere in the world. But human beings cannot live without plants and trees. There are two carbon sinks in the world. We are, as human beings, a carbon dioxide producing liability machine for the world. But plants are an asset. Plants and the ocean take in carbon dioxide and convert the environment conducive for us to live. In fact, plants more than the oceans produce oxygen. They take in carbon dioxide, they breathe out oxygen, and that purifies the atmosphere around us. And therefore, dear friends, get into gardening. This is a meditative experience indeed. So, Vandana, thank you so much for initiating into this particular thing. If somebody wants to contact you, how would they be able to do that?
So we have we can we have a website called UrbanMali.com where we have a contact number as well, or you could even write to me and Vandana@UrbanMali.com. And our website has a lot of amazing information about plants, about the work that we do, about our gardener. So please do visit our website and get in touch with us if you would like any help.
Okay, so here is the website that I'm sharing on the screen. There is something called as the three mantras of gardening. Is this an ebook that people can
Yes.
download?
Yes.
All right, so they can just enter their name here and put their email ID, and they can get their ebook downloaded instantly, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. And it has a lot of fun information to get you started on your gardening journey.
Lovely. So thank you and wonderful having you. Thank you very much for being there. Thank you for giving us this beautiful experience and knowledge that you have gathered over a period of time. May you win thousand more awards, and may the whole world be blessed with your wonderful um, meditative gardening setup and garden maintenance, not only in the city of Bangalore, but also in every city in India and every other major place across the world. May gardening grow, and may the world become prosperous and greener with wonderful soldiers like you and the set of meditative gardeners whom you are training professionally and giving them gainful employment. May the Almighty Force always be there with you, giving you all the success that you require to make this world a greener and prosperous world for all of us to live. Be blessed by the divine.
Be blessed by the
Thank you
divine.
very much, all of you, for joining this wonderful session. We have J.R. Subramaniam, who has said that digging the soil, collecting waste under the plants are very interesting work, valuable information. Be blessed by the divine. And we have quite a few people who have been watching this program on our YouTube channel. Bhavi Raman has said, thank you, Dr. Vandana. Subbu Anbu, informative session, Doctor. Thank you. Jennifer Hendrick gives you a namaskar. Then we have Manjunath Reddy. He is also acknowledging that gardening is very useful. Sonu is saying very useful tips. Pavi Tharag, be blessed by the divine. Aman Pratap also wishes you very well. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you again next in our next session, which is coming up in just 2 days. On Wednesday evening, stay tuned. I will share the title and the speaker for the Wednesday evening session at 9 p.m. in our Zoom channel, as well as in our YouTube channel live coverage. Sri Shakti Satyam, thank you so much for joining us. Bharat Kumar, we will share the ebook. Go to urbanmali.com, enter your name and email ID, and you should get the ebook downloaded instantly into your email inbox. Looking forward to seeing you in the next session. May the Almighty Force shower you all with good health, long life, enough wealth, peace, prosperity, fame, and wisdom. Till we meet again on Wednesday, stay safe and keep social distancing. take your vaccine and continue to meditate. Stay blessed.